after yesterday's debacle about time, I wouldn't waste time. I already set the timer for 20 minutes. So my topic today is rethinking smart cities paradigm. And I think there is a lot to be said about the soft side of technology. So that's where I'm coming from. First, definition of smart cities. I think you've all seen this. Yesterday, we heard a very good definition from Dr. Shankar. Yeah, perhaps the best. So the presentation framework that I have today is an introduction, a definition of smart cities, smart sustainable cities, and how sustainability goals, measuring sustainability, 3 case studies, and the closing messages. I had to cut down some, so I hope the messages is not lost. A bit of introduction. In this modern world, we can just compress everything into one QR code. So it's easy, no need to introduce, we just scan it. My firm, I'm an architect, we do a lot of urban design. Exactly what Amrita just now was saying about how places can become lively. It's not good if you create a city that is not lived in or people do not feel comfortable in, because we are not building buildings, we are building places for people. We are about the people, we are not about the technology, we are not about the infrastructure. Infrastructure, technology, buildings, everything is to serve people. So I'm also very representing the Malaysian Green Building Council. We are a very small country. Malaysia, we only have like 26 million people, perhaps. One of your mega cities is 26 million people. So the whole country is just that much. So we have about 190 million square feet of certified space. We have the similar tools, and we belong to the same family of the World Green Building Council. So we have the Indian Green Building Council representing India. We have Malaysia Green Building Confederation representing Malaysia, and of course other councils representing their own countries with their tools. Some of the figures from our, I don't think we have time for all this. This is Malaysia, in short, distribution of green buildings, so it's fairly widespread. Okay, back to the crux of the issue today. What are smart cities? So, you know, when you look at a lot of the definition, it's all about putting smart, most of it in front of mobility, environment, utility. But to summarize this, I think smart cities, simply put, is leveraging on technology to improve city services. Yeah, that is my personal definition, and I think it's very similar to your definition just now. Basically, you know, like when you say taking shortcuts or like hacking, you're hacking the system of cities to make it easier for people, to make it nicer for people. So a good example, yesterday, I think Dr. Shankar mentioned Uber, but I think Waze, everybody uses Waze here, right? So Waze is a very good example of how crowdsourcing has helped manage city traffic. Because previously, you need huge infrastructure, you need satellite, you need control. Now everybody is giving out their data for free. And the system is actually choosing your route based on everybody else's data. So we're sharing each other's data. And but what are sustainable cities? So when you put the word sustainable in, there's also another dimension, which is the social, economic, and environmental impact. And I think that can be compressed into what I say as well-being and livability. Because at the end of the day, it's all about whether or not you want to live in the city, whether or not that city makes you happy, whether or not all the citizens are happy. It's not just about a certain percentage of people in the elite class which are happy, but all the citizens. So, in fact, this is the World Green Building Confederation and the World Building Council. This is the motto for 2016, actually, better places for people. And it's also about inclusivity. That means, as I mentioned, it's not about certain class. It's about the age. It's about all races. It's about people who are challenged. And I think this is what I want to push today, because there's a lot, when I travel around the world a lot, and there are a lot of talk about green sustainable cities, but the emphasis is always on technology. And I don't think technology is the end all. Technology is only the tool to enable the goal. So we must be clear of what is the goal first. Only then can we reach the goal. If we don't know what the goal is, how can we reach it? And a lot of times, when we talk about creating green cities, it's always not a technological problem, but a human problem. A lot of the stakeholders, the developers, the government, the planners, the architects, the engineers, they are all concerned with their small scope of work, and they're not talking to one another. So they just want to do their work, and at the end of the day, they have different perspectives on what is actually a smart city or a sustainable city. And usually, at the end of the day, that which is causing the project or the city or even the whole state to fail because of this miscommunication and not engaging all these stakeholders. So you have to talk to one another, and doing this kind of project, a sustainable project, is about engagement. If you don't engage a certain segment or even the people, it will definitely be a failure. So the easiest way to look at this is we don't have to reinvent the wheel. The UN has already come up with sustainable development goals. All 100 over countries in the UN has agreed to these goals to be reached in 2030. So these sustainable development goals, there are 17 of them, and I won't go into detail, that's another conference on its own. But suffice to say, the previous millennial goals were reached, and that the millennial goals were to alleviate poverty. And in a lot of states, the targets, the poverty was alleviated. But what is beyond that? You know, life is not just about accumulation of money. It's about social equality. It's about feeling safe where you are. So there is this report by the World Economic Forum, which you can download for free, where they rank the inclusivity and social standard of each country. So I just highlight here, India is here, number 60. So I think this is perhaps what we are looking at, a measure of how to move forward. And it's not just about technology, it's not about having the tallest building in the world. Malaysia had one of the tallest buildings in the world once, but not everybody was happy. A few months, okay. Thank you, Dr. Sekar. So even the 17 goals had 160 over targets, so it's a very complicated matrix. So someone came up with a social progress index that actually compressed all of these goals. So basically, it divided what you want to achieve into three basic things, which is basic human needs, foundations of well-being, and opportunity. So these are what actually people need in order to be happy, in order to be content. And there is a people's report card that is being generated out of this. You can go to this site. If you Google people's report card, you can see the performance of each country, which reflects on how the country is run and what is the social progress. For example, the world is given in a grade like you're in school. So the world itself on overall is a C+. So I don't know what's the passing mark here. Most probably is a B or something like that. So probably the worst. The nutrition, medical care, and well-being, access to basic knowledge, communications, health, wellness, and opportunity, personal rights. So let's look at the top student in the world, which is Norway. Of course, it's an A student. Everything is an A except for shelter, A-, perhaps housing problems, health and wealth, personal rights. Malaysia, not so good, B+. We lack in personal rights, personal freedom of choice, tolerance and inclusion. Okay, Dr. Zakaria is laughing. India is a D+. So there's a lot to be improved in these aspects. So all these are indicators and of progress, of social progress. Because I believe that if the whole of India were to create all these fabulous technological wonders, but people are still not contented, then what is it all for? What is it all for? You know, if you have a billion over people and only 200 million are happy, then it's not worth it. So technology needs to be scaled to context and humanity, because sometimes, a lot of times, there's a lot of borrowing of ideas, and they're borrowing the wrong ideas to be implemented in the wrong place because it's not the local context. A great deal of this is the understanding of the human needs. There is, I'm sure some of you have seen this, Maslow's pyramid of needs. When someone, as long as you don't fulfill the needs on top, you will never have the needs below. So if someone is doesn't have say physiological needs, he's hungry, he doesn't have water, he will never think about love and belonging because he's so hungry. Yeah. So, but once you have a safe job, safety and love, then you're talking about self-esteem. You know, you want to be somebody in society, being better and whatnot. And at the end of the day, desire to become the most that one can be. So, why is all this important? Is because that 70% of the world's population, Malaysia is here, India is, China is here. 70% of the world population live in just that small circle. And every day, we need about 5,000 new homes just to fulfill the housing needs of the people in this circle. And, you know, not all the other America, Europe, outside. Megacities, as I mentioned, we don't even have a megacity, but you guys have Mumbai, Kolkata, Delhi, all 25, 22 million. I think it's more now, this is a bit dated. So the impact is, you know, 1% of our population as opposed to 1% of Indian population. If that impacts the world, you guys impact it a lot more. And growth, Shenzhen, China, 10 years ago, today. That is the scale of growth that is happening in China. And Shanghai, 1990, 2010, as opposed to Paris, 1930, 2010. So not much difference, but look at Shanghai, massive difference. Congestion, the world's longest traffic jam ever. You look at this 9-lane road each side. It lasted for 9 days. So imagine, don't complain about your traffic jam here. This is like 9 days. So it created a micro economy where people are selling drinks, food, you know, guiding your car for you to go to the toilet. So, and scariest thing of all is that India's population is to surpass China around 2024. It's not far ahead. You know, so look at all that growth. It's going to happen here. And you guys need to be prepared for that humongous growth. And the thing about doing a smart city planning, design, is all done in places like this. Office, you know, very sterile. It's like, and a lot of planners, we use tools that we look from above. We're almost godlike in looking at cities, and even with smart technology, we are given this sort of like overview of everything. This is taken from a game actually, but it's very good because it almost gives you all these indicators of water, poverty, yeah. But this is how planners look at things. But the problem is that you don't see the people, and if you ever played one of these games, you know, once you have built it up, there's no other thing than just mess it up with a disaster or something. You need to be, my point is that you need to be understanding the local context and not just looking from the sky as a godlike entity to change things. My first case study is this is Pertamina Tower in Jakarta. It's done by SOM, American architect. It's a very nice building. Jakarta, as you well know, is a very congested city. This is the carbon footprint for Jakarta. There's a lot of motorbikes. And of course, the lowest is by foot. And this is a LEED Platinum building. So it's the highest rating of the green building. It's a zero energy building because it actually supposed to get energy from geothermal, because Indonesia has active volcanoes, it can get a lot of energy from that. So it's one of the first skyscrapers in the world to be like net zero. That means you don't need external energy. But what LEED doesn't take into consideration is this, the context. This is Jakarta. The problem is LEED is a foreign tool. So the concerns of LEED is different from the concerns of the people of Jakarta. Each tool looks at its local context, very much so. Like for example, the Singapore tool, the green mark, is very water conscious. Why? Because Singapore buys water from Malaysia, so water for them is very important. The Malaysian tool, we look at energy a lot because for us energy is something that is very, very important. So each country has its own right and wrong. And I think that is something that local stakeholders need to look at, and especially dangerous when you employ foreigners to come and look at, to design for you, to look at what you need. And particularly very popular in Asian countries, perhaps because of our post-colonial past, we still look up to some Westerners. But it's a danger because it might not work. Some of the values that they take might not fit the workers that we have. Even in Malaysia, we have a shortage of workers. A lot of the workers come from other countries in Malaysia. And for example, the previous month, they might be farmers, and suddenly you are asking them to do high quality bricklaying. They can't be as good as a British bricklayer who has been bricklaying all his life and has a union, is highly paid and such. So construction processes and all that needs to be localized and understood. And sometimes this is then again a good story to tell, because I see there's a lot of talk about garbage separation here. And we have tried to some extent garbage separation, because a lot of our politicians, there was a look east policy, they went to Japan to buy incinerators. And of course incinerators, you need to separate the garbage because you need wet, dry, But the problem is, culture is different. Culture is different. In Japan, what primary school kids from as young as 2 or 3 years old, they already separate rubbish. And they are taught that in school there's no janitors. They wash the toilets. They are responsible for the school. So it's that kind of civic consciousness that actually leads them, when they are very young, to separate rubbish. But unfortunately, a lot of the education system in Malaysia are very driven towards more academic stuff, and it's very difficult to change mindsets, because that is something technology cannot change. Technology needs to change the education system. Only then you fit technology to fit the solution, or else the incinerators won't work. You will spend more time trying to physically, you have to hire people to separate rubbish. Similarly to other rating tools, like for example, there's a tool called CASB in Japan. There is a lot of self-regulation. But in Asia, it's very difficult to do self-regulation because the companies are not very honest. But in Japan, it's a matter of honor. They won't lie to one another. It's like, if I change my scores, that is a very dishonorable thing to do. So that system can work there. But if you transplant that in another country, say Vietnam, it will never work. So you have to think about what's good for India, and how are you going to create your own local thing that will work for you. Humanizing the city, yeah. And again, a lot of designers, architects, town planners, politicians, they actually never walk the city. They never walk in the path of a normal citizen. That's why I always use this word, flounder. It comes from a French word to describe that, a stroller, a lounger, a loafer. Because walking the city gives you insight on what's happening to the old man on the street, what's the problems there. If you have never walked the city, you can't plan for a city. You can't plan for a city from your air-conditioned car, your air-conditioned office, your even worse in Malaysia, we have developers who sit in 60-story offices looking down, you know, like, wow, I'm planning for. I used to, in KL, I used to bike a lot. And if anybody who has gone to KL, it's not a safe city to bike because there's a lot of cars. But still, it gives a new insight on how to actually navigate and how to improve the city. So, if ever you become a planner or someone of influence later on, because I know this college is very good and a lot of alumni become people in important places. So don't forget to go on the street and take a look at what's happening. Sometimes it's very simple. Yesterday somebody was asking how do you actually force people to use public transport, and you know that the answer is very simple. Make it no choice for them. Once you make car travel very difficult, people will go for public transport, and you have to make your public transport better. That is the only two ways to go about it. And reducing lanes, increasing bike lanes, yeah, reducing car lanes. That's the way to go. If not, if you keep providing for cars, you will have cars. If you keep building multi-level car parks, people will buy more cars. Because the thing about technology is it's not the technology's fault. It's the person who wields the technology. So technology is like a knife, right? What you do with the knife is not the knife's fault. But the car, if it's a status symbol, in many Asian countries, you know, to own a car is a status symbol. Everybody wants to own a car, even though it's more expensive than their house sometimes. So because it is society that teaches in that way. So as a society, if you want things to change, you have to change those values. And I think values start from school. I think a lot of engineers, I'm sure here there are road engineers. A simple thing as a curb, when we talk about urban design, a curb is something that is very basic. But a curb also sends you a message. This is a normal road curb. This is one that says that you can't park here, you can't open your door. And this is the one that says, oh, we're a bit friendlier, you can push something, or you can park above. So, planning a city, urban design, is planning something that's huge, but at the scale of the smallest thing. So that is a lot of times people forget that. And once you have that understanding, you can make things just by doing simple things, like for example, raising the curb at the right moment so that it can become a seat for people to sit. So it's just a matter of thinking out of the box, thinking just a bit further. I think design thinking, yeah. This is my old architecture school in Liverpool. It's like an arena. So very important lesson I learned that when they talked about people in wheelchairs. What the professors made us do is that we had to spend a week in a wheelchair. And it was difficult. Everybody thought, wow, it's easy because we have all the ramps, you know, and we think that at that moment we were quite fit, not now. we thought that, you know, you can go up the ramp easily, but no, you can't, it's difficult. So once you go through that experience and you become a designer, you will understand that, oh, I really need to make the ramp as mild as possible. So I think in having this experiential learning is very important, because we were involved in a conversation yesterday whereby a lot of graduates want to work for big companies with big salaries and in managerial positions, and at the end of the day they do not know how to become real engineers and so on and so forth. And I think, you know, you have to experience what it's like in order to become wiser, and when you become wiser, then you can change the world. Ramps, yeah. Housing is another thing that another case study that I would like to just share, because people think that affordable housing is very easy. You just build at the lowest cost. But the problem is, without proper thought put into the mixture of housing, it will surely fail. Because what unintentionally, governments are creating unintentional slums. Why I say this is because once you have an area that is for a poorer set of people, when these people become a bit more wealthier, what do? They move out, right? Because they don't want to be in a poor area, right? They want to be maybe in a middle class area. So what happens to that house is somebody moves in or somebody rents in there. So eternally, that place will be for poor people, and it will become a slum. And that is why the propensity for slums around the world is increasing, because the people do not understand how it works. Because in those days, in our villages, in older times, when you become richer, you don't move out of your house, you don't move out of your apartment. You extend your apartment, you make sure that the community is better, because your basic needs are met. Firstly, you were so engrossed in finding food and whatnot and trying to survive. Then after you have done that, now you feel a sense of belonging to your neighborhood. But then how do you act? Only then would you take care of the neighborhood. And that's why in a lot of places, people don't take care of their neighborhoods because they don't care. Some of the projects that we suggested, these are some that won a competition in Malaysia. For example, this is a low-cost house. Usually it's a single story, but what we proposed was just to elevate the house so that you leave the bottom area free. So what this does is that it creates flexibility, and we base it on a very traditional way of doing a house with natural ventilation, because not all technology needs to be high-tech, because the more high-tech you go, the more expensive it gets. This flexibility enables you that when the person becomes a bit more wealthier, he or she can upgrade his house. When they have children, they can make sure they extend the spaces or use the spaces for other things. And we have studied patterns of families, so that you can actually how do you divide the spaces. So this is already architecture. I know a lot of you are engineers, but it's this sort of thinking that we need to solve problems like housing, rather than just let's create housing to the cheapest that we can and force people to live there. Similar concept for high-rise. This one creates some sort of each block. It's actually super blocks, which are very popular, and at the middle you create neighborhood spaces whereby people can intermingle and have a sense of belonging, public spaces. So what you want to do is enable the house to be extendable, and people can feel that they belong to a neighborhood rather than just a place that is transient. That once I earn enough money, I'm out of here, I'm gonna leave. And also construction systems for it. Technology for social change. It's a way to leverage things to change the world. And this is a command center for Bandung in Indonesia. And this is the mayor, Wali Kota. They call it Wali Kota there. What this says is he's the best mayor in the world, and it is. He has won almost 100 awards since he became mayor. And in the elections, he was an underdog. And how he has leveraged the technology is very simple. He has leveraged Facebook. So he is the mayor that's available on Facebook. He has a partnership with Mark Zuckerberg. Mark Zuckerberg came here, made Bandung a sister town and whatnot. And any citizen of Bandung can communicate with their mayor via Facebook. And he actually cut corruption by a lot by automating processes. For example, business licenses. Usually, previously, when you need to apply for a business license, you had to go to a counter, apply a business license, and then set up your shop, your restaurant or whatnot. But what Ridwan Kamil did was say, okay, that's a place where people pass money, extra money for faster processing and whatnot. So he said everything is automated. You don't need businesses below 100,000 USD, you don't need to register, just register online. So suddenly all these officers who had been receiving bribes before had nowhere to receive bribes, automatically. Hundreds of people now, okay, utilized for something else, cleaning up public spaces and stuff. So things like hospitals, what he did was utilize all the technical college in Bandung to write apps for the government. So they have apps for example, waiting for hospital. In government hospitals always overbooked. So it sometimes takes many hours to wait for the doctors. So you can use the app to just, book your time, and then you can go about your business, and the app will tell you when to go to the hospital. So it's very small things. It's not science fiction technology. It's just normal things used in very ingenious ways. And I don't have time to further explain about him, but do look him up. Very impressive what he did with Bandung with private funding. Even in KL, we're trying to do some things. With this is an app for example, it's very congested KL, so you need to know how many parking days in certain areas and what is happening everywhere. So in addition to things like waste, the local council have done all this to make sure that everybody's lives is much easier. I don't want to be spending 2 hours, 1 hour in a jam, suddenly arriving at a place to see a movie and suddenly finding no parking. So you have all this interlinked already, so that it's all online. And people, the building owners, also is good for them. They are providing the data. So it's a win-win for everybody. Last message, a bit about our culture. I guess the Asian culture is, when we talk about sustainability, we confuse it with sufficiency. And just because you have energy efficient house doesn't mean that you can build a manor that's fit for 100 people, but there are only four individuals living in it. That is not sustainable. That is why we were very sustainable before is because we were sufficient. We only required what we required, and only required what is enough for us to be comfortable. But now the capitalistic system has forced us to be beating your neighbor. If your neighbor has 1 car, you need 2 cars. If I can afford 5 cars, I have 5 cars. I want 1 for the golf course, 1 to pick up my kids, 1 to go to the market. So it's a societal thing most of the time. And if these people were to give back to society, donate a car for the community, it will help a lot. And I think that is something that Asians need to really look at. The idea of sufficiency versus sustainability. Because it doesn't mean that you have the latest technology, like this hybrid Porsche Carrera, Porsche Cayenne, as opposed to just a normal hybrid. No business, no. In order to do that, we must say no to business as usual and try to get this. That's why I was talking about paradigm shift. It's not just technology we're talking about, it's social change. If you don't have social change, your technology will be worthless. If you have a wonderful, it has happened in a lot of countries that try to import technology and do monuments, super buildings, but at the end of the day, it doesn't work very well. This is a very good quote. A developed country is not a place where the poor have cars. It's where the rich use public transportation. And I think this is something that any country should aspire to.